Okay. Whoa. Can you hear me, Frank? And Frank, are you there? Let's see. Frank. Can you hear me, Frank? Hmm. Can you hear him out there? Okay. Frank, could you hang up and then call back in 1 minute? I will let you know when to call. Sorry about the technical difficulty. Okay. Awesome. All right. I'm going to let him know to try again. Okay, let's try that again. Can you hear me, Frank?
Way better.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Harry, station manager, for solving that stuff. Okay, I'm going to... Right. So I'm going to play the theme song and then do an intro.
Okay.
Perfect. And then I'll make sure that you're still on the air and then we'll jump into our conversation.
Cool.
All right, cool. Thanks so
All
much.
right.
And
Looking forward to it.
all right, hold on 1 second right where you are and let's do this. Thanks again, Harry. Welcome to Deep Focus, a radio show about movies and New Haven. I'm your host, Tom Breen, and I'm joined in the studio today by Trish Clark, the producer of the 48-Hour Film Project New Haven.
Yep.
Is that the right title? Excellent. And the founder of it, the grand poobah of the local instance of the 48-Hour Film Project. And also joined over the phone by Frank Fasano. Frank, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
How's everybody doing?
Excellent, Frank. A repeat, not offender, a repeat participant in the 48-Hour Film Project New Haven, whose film, esteemed film, won each of the past 2 years. We'll hear a bit about Frank's participation in the 48 in a second. But first, Trish, it's great to have you back in the studio for the ninth. Well, not the ninth time in the studio, but the 9th annual New Haven 48-Hour Film Project.
Thank you.
That is a crazy.
I've clearly been in the studio more than
You've
9
been
times.
Yes, you have been in the studio many times. But congratulations on keeping this thing going for nearly a decade.
Thank you. We're looking forward to year 10 even already.
That's right. So for listeners who may not know about the fest, could just lay it out. What is this all about? What happens every year at the end of July in New Haven? Why will New Haveners see people running around with cameras and notebooks and crazy costumes and wigs and stuff, and put them at solace a month before?
Well, we have the 48 goes on filming the last weekend in July, so the 26th through 28th this year. And it's teams of filmmakers from really all over Connecticut, all over New England, come and make a film in 48 hours. So 4 to 7 minutes, short film. On Friday night, they pick a film genre out of a hat or something else that I might concoct up. And then they get assigned a specific character, prop, and line of dialogue that must be in the film. And they have 48 hours to make the whole thing.
And so in past years, the kickoff event has taken place at the Outer Space.
It was at the Outer Space for as many years as it could be, and then the Outer Space sadly closed.
And this year it's at the Beer Axe in East Haven,
yep.
And July 26th. So if people, well, actually, let's just get it out of the way early. If people want to participate or they want to know more, is what's the website or Facebook page, or where do people go?
You can get the main website is www.48hourfilm.com/New Haven, and then you can actually attach, click on the Facebook page, and it will send you directly to our Facebook page and Instagram and Twitter as well. But you can sign up right on the website, or if you do just happen to find us on Facebook, the sign up button will also lead you to our website so you can sign up.
And this, even though this has been happening in New Haven for 9 years, this is actually an international competition, or at least international annual event. Well over 100 different cities around the world take place. And what happens to this is a competition in that the movies are judged, right? And winners advance to certain places.
So we have, each city gets their own judges. And so we have different judges each year that pick, same as the Oscars, best film, best directing, best writing, we have all those awards. And so we do that on the city side, and then the winner from the city goes and competes against all the other winners from all the other, it's about 125, 130 cities right now internationally. And they call that Filmapalooza. And
that's in the Netherlands this year?
This year it's going to be in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. So that's the second international one that they've done. Usually it's in the States, but this will be the second time outside of the States. And from there, same thing. They all compete against each other and still have best film, best writing, best editing, whatever. And 12 of those go on to screen at the Cannes Film Festival.
And how many people usually participate in this? Do you remember how many teams participated last year for New Haven?
I think last year I had 32. We've had as many as 39. So the first year when we had like a couple months to do it, we had 9 teams, and so we've gone from 9 to 39. But we're in that 30-ish range.
And one thing I always love hearing you talk about in terms of the people and the filmmakers that the New Haven competition pulls in is that, well, obviously this show is all about New Haven and movies, so we love celebrating everything local, but this has a kind of a regional draw, right? You're not just getting people from New Haven, but people from Massachusetts, New York, New Hampshire. That last year, do you remember the general mix? Is it a pretty even mix of local and not local, or do you find that you're getting more from out of town?
It's not an even mix. So up till last year, we always had more out of Connecticut teams. Last year was our biggest number of Connecticut teams. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but we actually tipped a scale, so it wasn't 50. It wasn't even 50-50. We had more Connecticut teams for the first time.
Hooray!
And usually that we have. They're supposed to be at least 2 weeks apart for cities that are close together. But this year, Providence is filming the weekend before we are. So there's actually a deal that if you sign up to do both, you get one of them for a really big discounted price. So if you want to make 2 films in 2 weekends, you could do that. We already have one team that's doing that. And then New York is 2 weeks after us. Usually New York is in June, but it's a new person and scheduling conflicts. So it's a lot in this time. The other one that's close by is Boston, and that one was in May.
So definitely for people interested in making films in both the Providence and the New Haven ones, take advantage of that discount.
That's right.
Not to be on the side. Frank, let me welcome you into this conversation as well as someone who has participated in, and in fact your team has won the competition a few years running now. Could you tell me and our listeners a bit about yourself and your team? I guess first, where are you based out of, and how did you find the New Haven 48 to participate in?
So my name is Frank Pisano, of course, for people who didn't hear that. But yeah, I've competed now in the New Haven competition for 3 years. We didn't win our first year, but then the last 2 years we've won back to back. And I heard about the competition through a mutual friend of ours, me and Trish's, Mike Chuney, and I collaborated with him the first 2 years I competed in the New Haven, Connecticut 48.
And 3 years ago, was that your first time doing any 48, or are you a regular on this circuit, either in the Northeast or, I don't know, traveling elsewhere?
Well, the team that I was with the first 2 years of doing the New Haven one, I supported them in just being a guy who was cheering them on. They competed in the New York competition, and they actually had won that one the year before. And so and that was Mike Chooney's group, Making Pretend Productions, and we just he looked at me and he was like, "I want you on my team," and I was like, "Okay." And so the rest is history, and we competed, and fate has been good to us.
Well, fate and also clearly filmmaking ability. Another thing I love so much about the 48 is that it brings in not just people from all over the region, all over the city, but also people of greatly varying filmmaking backgrounds and abilities. And based on the two movies that have won the New Haven 48 the past 2 years, the first being Manifest, or sorry, the first being All Points in Between, second Manifest, it looks like you have some background in this. You're not just picking up a camera with some friends and goofing off. Just based on the pretty sophisticated camera angles and lighting. It's pretty. I think a good way to distinguish between people who may know what they're doing and not is whether there's lighting at all, or just kind of using whatever natural light versus any kind of intentional light setup, and also sound, of course, is usually a pretty good indicator of people who are more familiar with the technology and those who are not. So, all to say, I saw that in your movies, you seem to be know what you're doing. So, are you a filmmaker by trade, or is this something that's been a long time passion of yours?
Well, I mean, I went to school for filmmaking. I went to SUNY New Paltz, and I got two bachelor's degrees. One in digital media production, so filmmaking production and all of that stuff, and then the other was theater performance. So I've been in the arts my whole life. I've done community theater, and I've been working with Jarek Zepchinski for 10 years, and he was the director of Manifest, and I brought him on my team because he's just an incredible guy too. And what I try to do is I try to take my knowledge and my history of working in film, and I just try to bring in as much talented people that I've worked with over the years, and I try to make really great teams. And this year we have a really great team, and I'm really excited to be competing this year as well.
Could you tell us a bit about well, actually, if you pick a moment from last year or the year before that you think kind of best embodies for you what you so love about the 48, why you come back to do it over and over again? Because obviously, it's a pretty unusual setup in that they're incredibly strict time constraints. You only have 2 days in which to work, and also you're picking, you have to work with all of these different criteria that you find out about just at the start of the competition. So is there a moment either when you're kind of frantically writing the midnight on Friday night, or trying to find the right set on Saturday, or slapping your computer to get things to render properly on set? Like what? Tell us about a moment or two from the past 2 years that you think makes the 48 something interesting and worth participating in.
As a person who prides himself as being an editor, my favorite part really is when right after my second favorite part is just literally getting to our shoot locations and just shooting. But my all-time favorite is when I just finally start, if I'm not cutting or if I am cutting, seeing the whole project come together, and or the starting and the workings of it coming together. When I was when high school, I started shooting short little things, and I used to do little sketch comedy things with my friend Vin Craig and Chris Ireland, and the 48 really embodies that a little bit in terms of how fast you have to put the whole thing together. My buddies and I back in the day, we used to have one day, and we'd have to shoot everything, cut it together, and then we uploaded it to the internet. So I think the 48 really complements us in terms of the enjoyment of doing things really quickly. But back to the editing, it's my favorite part. Just seeing and then the finishing touches too, like when you're just adding the finishing touches, and then you got to get there at the last minute. You got to get it if you don't submit it, then it doesn't count, So my favorite part is the cutting and submitting it when it's all done.
Well, you are listening to Deep Focus on WNHH-LP, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm your host, Tom Breen, and I'm joined by Trish Clark and Frank Fasano to talk about this year's 48-hour film project New Haven, the annual competition to write, direct, shoot, edit, produce everything a short movie in just 2 days, and then submit it to a competition where it will be screened in Seymour this year.
Strand in
At the
Seymour.
Strand,
Yeah.
got it. Which is where you screened the films last year as well.
Last year everything was at the Bijou, and so the year before it was at the Strand, and for the premieres. And this year the premieres will be at the Strand back there again, and then the best of awards night will be at the Bijou.
And are you the only support line during the weekend, Trish, or do you have a partner this year for helping people who are frantically trying to
Well, I have
do something?
people that help me, but the support line is my cell phone number. So yeah, they have to call me if they have problems or issues over the weekend.
Can you pick out
And I've called that number.
Do you remember what you called about?
Oh yeah, but we had some SAG actors in our last film, so I wanted to make sure that the paperwork was right and all that good paperwork stuff.
Wait, SAG meaning Screen Actors Guild, like union? You had some unionized, like professional actors.
Yes.
Wow, nice. That's that's some serious stuff. Could you pick out a call from last year or recent years, Trish, that you got from a team that is particularly memorable and indicative of the craziness of the 48?
I don't know what Frank said. I can't hear anything in here. That's why I just took the headphones off. But I think my favorite call that I got ever wasn't even a call. It was a text message. That was it was like a text message that said, how are we about extras or something like that, and they sent me a picture, and I looked at the picture. I'm like, you do not get extra credit for having my brother and his fiance in your film. Like, they were just random people walking in the park, and they're like, we got him to sign off, and then they're like, wait a minute, they're related to Trish. And then they cut them out of the film. They weren't even in it.
Oh no, they're just trying to leverage them. And
so at the Q&A, I was like, don't call me and say my family's going to be in the film, and then cut them out. And that was Dutch elm disease. That was Ben's.
I got it. Another repeat competitor.
Yeah.
I just turned up the studio knob, so hopefully you'll be able to hear it. And there's some levers on that table, so maybe push those things around, and hopefully you'll be able to hear.
Now I can hear you.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
okay.
And hopefully you'll be able to hear Frank too. Frank, your team won each of the past 2 years. Tell us about the subsequent screenings at Filmapalooza, and then did your movies go even further than that?
Yeah, our first winner, and All Points, won Best Editing at Filmapalooza, and it was able to have the great honor to screen at the Cannes Short Corner at the Cannes Film Festival. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to either of those screenings for the first film, but just having the honor and winning Best Editing at Filmapalooza was crazy. Just it was an unreal thing. We were watching the live stream, and we didn't even hear our name get called, and then Trish sends us a message and like, you guys won, you're going to Cannes, and we were like, oh my god, and we were all screaming. It was a good time.
That was in Paris too, so I didn't go either, because we're like, that was the first international, and that was the first time they live streamed, so I was watching it work, and I didn't hear them say it either, but I heard the music, and I was like, why are they playing All Points in between? And then, like, I paid more attention. I'm like, oh my god! Like, I started crying, and I was like, and I started texting the guys. I'm like, do you know what just happened? So yeah,
was that the first time that a New Haven 48 team had won at Filmapalooza?
Yes, at Filmapalooza, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is incredible. And Frank, why? I don't know. Why do you think you all won the Best Editing Award that year? Or tell me and the listeners a bit about your approach to editing. And you said it's one of your favorite parts of the competition. Clearly, it's part of filmmaking that you love a lot. When you sit down to edit one of these short movies, what are you thinking about? And what are you doing with your hands and your mind?
Well, I think the most important thing to get right, above all else, when you're cutting a film, is getting the pace of the film right. Regardless of if it's a dramatic piece, if it's a comedy, like, they have certain paces to them, and the story has a certain pace to it, and it's just finding that blend between the pace of the story and the pace of the genre and the pace of encompassing it all within the requirements of the 48. yeah, I think it's a daunting task to do in 48 hours, but it's it's an incredible experience, and it really does help you in terms of becoming a better editor. The reason why I think we won best editing for that film, I think it's because I didn't see all 120 something films, but I think our film was a little different in terms of the pace that we set, and the pace for that film was we wanted it to just feel fluid. We wanted the whole thing to just keep moving because in that film the main actress loses her wallet and she's got to get back to the bar where her wallet is, and she has to navigate her way through the bar to get to the bartender who has the wallet, and she has tons of obstacles in her way. And how we cut it was we used a bunch of wipe transitions. So it never felt like we were jumping in and out of scenes. It just everything just kept flowing through. And I don't know if other people had used wipe transitions, but that's like an old style of of editing, and I think uh, or an older style of editing, and I think the judges saw that, and I think it was probably different than the 120 something films that were at Filmapalooza that year.
As someone who saw some of the other films, it was like that, and I think that's exactly right. It was the pace and the way it was done set it apart, like at a whole different level.
And I think one of the parts of All Points that I was so impressed by when I watched it in preparation for the show is that the editing also really contributes to the audience's understanding of a half dozen different characters who are pretty fully fleshed out in just 5 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing how many people I felt like I knew in this one bar over the course of this short film. And I think that is
Mm-hmm.
a tribute to both the writing, the performances, but also to be able to cram that much personality in and that diversity of it into a short film is a real accomplishment. So yeah,
Well,
congrats
I,
on
I
that.
I credit that to not just the cutting. I credit that to the entire cast that we had worked with on that film. When we did stuff with Making Pretend, it was all about ensemble pieces, and we really got in actors, and we really made jokes for them, and that complemented them. And I got to give a big shout out to Chris Ireland, who also he was also the editor on it. Me and him edited that project. So and he also Chris was the director on that project too. So that project really did come out really great, and we're very proud of that.
Frank, how does the New Haven 48 compare to other 48s that you've been a part of, if any? Like, and why is it that you come back to this city's in particular? I mean, obviously you've got a good streak of coming out on top, but I don't know what is it that you think distinguishes the New Haven 48 from others, and why are
Well,
you doing it
I
again
gotta
this
be
year?
honest with you. I think it's Trish's leadership and her determination to put on a good competition. I mean,
Thanks, Frank.
she's a well, you're welcome, but it's her ability to be there to answer questions, to have such a positive energy over the course of the entire festival. It just makes it very welcoming and enjoyable to compete in the New Haven 48.
Well, in the years I've known Trish, that definitely that praise is definitely appropriate. So, congrats, Trish, on helping
Thanks,
bring at
Tom.
least one team back. And from your perspective, I don't know what is it that continues to make New Haven unique in amongst all of the hundreds of different cities that participate in this. Why do you think people come back to this competition year after year after year?
Well, I do think I do try to have a very positive, upbeat environment and have a good group. I think you can really see that when you come to the screenings and see how supportive all the filmmakers are of each other. Because I think as anyone who does this knows, it's 2 days. A lot could go right, a lot more could go wrong, and you don't have time to fix it. So these may not
Mm-hmm.
be the films that the people wanted, but it's what they could do. And it's like if you finish that and it's up on the screen, that's a huge accomplishment. And you can go and fix it later, like that's fine. But the competition is it's the timing that makes this so big, and the fact that everyone's supportive of each other, even if they're in Q&A and be like, man, I wish this was different. Like, okay, but what you did was great, and keep going and keep doing more. that's what we try to foster.
It is a really, as someone who's written a lot about the 48 and followed teams around, it is a really nice balance between it's definitely competitive, but it's a friendly competition.
Yeah.
There's good sportsmanship.
There is
usually
good sportsmanship,
at the 48. And I know I ask you this every year. It's a bit difficult to kind of track year over year, but how is this competition, the New Haven competition, changed over the 9 years that you've been doing this? Is there something that you find yourself doing differently in how you manage it, or the types of people who are coming, or the locations people I don't know, what is it that you've how's this evolved over the 9 years that you've been overseeing this?
I try to have it evolve at least a little bit each year to, go with us, hopefully getting bigger and better each year. We have tried several different venues. Like, our original screening spot was the Whitney Community Center, which is lovely, and I screen stuff there a lot too, but the filmmakers really like being in a theater. And so I try to get that whenever possible. And I mean, the Strand has the old school marquee. It's a little bit out of the way, but it's worth it once you're there. And teams seem to like that. And I'm gonna have a food truck there this year, which is awesome. Iron and Grain food truck.
Ooh.
And so there's that. I do try to get different spots, different locations, hopefully different sponsors. If I can, I try to get different prizes. I always include the award for the best iconic shot or most noticeable shot of New Haven, just because I love New Haven, as do you, and because you don't have to film in Connecticut, but I like to encourage that. So, not everybody goes for that. Like, I mean, Frank's team usually films in New York, obviously, because he's from New York. But we try to encourage keeping as much Connecticut positivity and creative filmmaking environment as possible.
Do you know, or can you announce who the judges are for this year's competition?
I can't. I don't have them all secured yet. And I like to wait till I have them all secured.
Understood.
I am working on a pretty nice name.
Who are some of the judges who have participated in the past? Can you a few names that?
Well, actually, Mike, who was on Making Pretend, he was on the team with Frank. He has judged before. So once he stopped doing it, he asked if he could be a judge, which I think actually makes a great judge, someone who's been through it. And obviously,
I
as a
agree.
teacher, he taught Frank well.
Good for judges.
How many teams have signed up so far?
Right now we have 14.
14.
Which is about where we were 2 years ago. It's on par with we're in the early bird registration time, so it's the best time to register, as in it's only $148, and it goes up again next Tuesday. So I'm sure we'll have some more before Tuesday. Well, it's still this price.
And what does it go to after Tuesday?
So after Tuesday, it's regular registration, and so it just goes up $20, so $168. And then 2 weeks before we film, it will go to the late registration, which is $188.
Great. So definitely before Tuesday, July 2nd?
Yeah.
Before Tuesday, July 2nd, if you're interested in this, and I strongly encourage you to be, and you probably are if you're listening to the show, then yeah, check it out. If you could give one piece of advice to a team that maybe has not participated in this before, or someone who's listening and saying, "Huh, that sounds like a lot of fun, but I'm way out of my element. I have no idea how to do this." Could you share one nugget of wisdom for those aspiring 48ers?
Well, it's funny, we had a sound workshop on Monday, and I think that is the biggest thing that a lot of 48 teams neglect is sound. So my one piece of advice would be, like, if you have anyone on your crew who knows what you're doing, it should be the sound person.
Don't forget about sound.
Yeah.
And Frank, same for you as we wrap up our conversation, as someone who's participated in this competition a bunch and has won a few. What is it that you would say to people who want to participate but haven't done this before? What's one piece of advice you would give?
I would say get a solid crew together. Get a crew where you feel very comfortable with, feel like you're in a very safe space. There are no wrong answers. And you're just trying to find out the story. And just make sure that you're all on the same page and that the people that you're working with have some knowledge in the field of what they're doing. no matter what their expertise is, as long as they have some knowledge and you enjoy the people that you're working with, regardless of how the film comes out, the people there will respect the film and you will enjoy the process of making a film in 48 hours.
And
Well said.
Trish, while I have you here, I know that you've also been leading the Nutmeg Institute for since January, or maybe even before then. I'm kind of forgetting what year it is, but you are also the head of an organization that promotes film and filmmaking and film loving culture in Connecticut. What's the role that Nutmeg has played in the 48 this year? And could you just give us a quick Nutmeg update?
Well, Nutmeg has this year was doing some teaching some kids after school up in the Torrington area, and they just had a competition a few weeks ago, like the NMA. So we were teaching some after school production PSA type things, like either do a PSA or a short film. So we're just trying to kind of get the next generation the knowledge even earlier of how much fun it is to work in production.
Well, I guess 48 could be a good entry point for people interested in seeing if filmmaking is for them. Well, Frank Fasano and Trish Clark, I'm so grateful to both of you as always for coming on the show. Frank, it was great to meet you. Could you maybe give a Facebook page or a website or Twitter handle or something if people are interested in learning more about you and your work? Where can they go?
Oh man, I don't.
Or a Vimeo page, or
stumped him.
or whatever you want.
His manifest is on. If you want to see manifest, it's on the 48 website because it is the current reigning winner, so it's on there. So that's one way to see some of their work.
Yeah, and I guess you could just Google my name. I've done some things, and I guess if you want to follow me on Instagram, I think my Instagram handle is Frank Fasano III. It's with 3 I's. So. Yeah, I'm not really good at social media plugs.
Well, we will whatever it is that you've shared, or definitely the Vimeo link on the 48 page. We'll make sure to share on this radio show's website. And Trish, could you tell us one more time the website for 48, or how people can sign up to participate?
Sure, it's www.48hourfilm.com/New Haven.
Excellent. And that's where you can watch videos of previous winners and also learn more about how to participate in this year's. The competition itself is July 26th to the 28th, but sign up much earlier than that and reap the many discounts
that's right.
you can afford. Trish, thank you for coming on the show as always. And Frank, it was great to meet you. I'll see you on the 48 trail.
Yeah, it was great to meet you. Can't wait.
You can find a recording of this episode and many, many other episodes about New Haven and the movies at deepfocusradio.com. And we will catch up with you next week for another conversation about New Haven and the movies.